Doctors are humans and have all of the sort of foibles of the human condition. Pretending that because we're physicians that we don't suffer illnesses or are supposed to be able to just muscle ourselves through anxiety and depression without any help, it's just foolish. My name's Gabriel Bosslet, and I am a professor of clinical medicine in pulmonary and critical care medicine, and I'm also assistant dean for faculty affairs and professional development here at IE School of Medicine. I idle hot, so I'm constantly moving and doing. I've always been that way. It was always a benefit for me because it meant I got things done and I was productive. There are advantages to idling hot, but there are disadvantages too. And the time of my life when I really started to notice the disadvantages was in the third year of my fellowship. So fellowship is, I had done med school, I had done 4 years of residency, I was in my second or third year fellowship, and I was really struggling with what I was going to do with my life. And that was the time when I started to notice myself struggling. The ICU is a very high emotion environment. Being in that environment for long periods of time means that you have to develop coping strategies to sort of dissipate that emotion, because it's not as though that emotion is just happening to that family or that person sitting across from you and it's you experience none of it. You are an affected bystander by that grief, very, very much so. And for me, struggling at that point was mostly not being able to fall asleep, waking up at 3 in the morning, perseverating over things, some of which were important and some of which were very unimportant. I even recognized their unimportance at the time. And it was being sad a lot, despite the fact that by almost all human measures, I had accomplished a lot, thinking that I was less than, for reasons that I didn't understand. I mean, truthfully, when you're in it, you just feel like, well, I just need to pull myself out of this. Like, why am I having these feelings about this? You feel like it's sort of just this battle of your internal will to sort of just not feel this way. I just knew that the water in which I swam was sullied, and I had no clue why. I coped with it for a long time by drinking. I found that helped me because I could forget those things. It didn't help me cope, it just helped me forget. My journey to understanding that I was actually an alcoholic was one of wanting to quit, being unable to quit, choosing alcohol over running. I frequently will run late at night, and I would know if I crack this IPA, I'm not gonna run later. And it became to the point where I would crack the IPA almost every time. And I was a person who realized about themselves, and I sort of realized this just in retrospect, but I like the feeling of a rising blood alcohol level, not the feeling of just a non-zero blood alcohol level. It was never one IPA for me. It was always somewhere between 4 and 6, and those are 8% alcohol. That's a lot of alcohol in one evening. No one really talked back then about depression and anxiety, but I wound up talking to my primary care physician, and he was like, Gabe, I think you're depressed. And I didn't really understand. It took me a while to sort of process and figure out really that is what was going on. And understanding that when you're in it, it's very hard to see it. So for me, my primary care physician was very helpful in seeing it from the outside and sort of putting context to it, but it took some convincing for me. Look, I think that you're depressed. Why don't we just try Lexapro and see what happens? And I sort of did it to satisfy him, truthfully, to prove that wasn't the case. And boy, that was pretty eye-opening to sort of go through those weeks where I initiated treatment and then just sort of magically start to sleep well and be able to sort of process things better. So for me, it took sort of someone helping me to contextualize what I was going through to sort of figure out that anxiety and depression was sort of part of at least my journey at that point. Having life with depression, anxiety, it's not like I dealt with that and it's over. Like, it's a constant sort of ebb and flow, recognizing that I may need a little bit more help and figuring out, okay, I need to go do this right. At this point in my life, I need a little bit more help, and so I need to go get that. For me, the internal shame of alcoholism was nuclear compared to the internal shame of my anxiety and depression, and I don't know why that is. I think because the anxiety and depression, I knew on some level like that was not something that I controlled. The alcoholism, it seemed to me like something I should be able to control much more than the way that I responded. So for me, the process of getting treatment for anxiety, depression, and being able to talk about that with others was a pretty short window. The process of getting treatment for alcoholism and being able to talk about that was much longer, I think because the shame for me was much greater. My journey was wanting to quit, being unable to quit, and having a mentor, Adam Hill, who was a physician here and wrote a book, actually, A Long Walk Out of the Woods, about his struggle with alcoholism. And I texted him one day, and I was like, Adam, listen, tell me just something small to do, like when I feel like the urge to drink. And he sent me a link to a Zoom AA meeting. And I was like, no, that's not it. You don't understand. I'm not an alcoholic. I just want to stop drinking. He said, have you tried to stop drinking? And I was like, yeah, probably 5 or 6 times. He's like, then maybe you should go to one of these meetings. He's like, just go, check it out. You don't have to say anything. No one's gonna call you out. Like it's on Zoom. You're gonna sit in your office or in your car. So I did, I went, and I found people talking about alcohol in ways that I thought about it, but was like mortified to speak out loud about. And they also did this thing called the day count, where you say, I'm Gabriel Bosslet, an alcoholic, and this is day number, 15. And for me, that was very helpful. I'm an accountability, public accountability type of a person. And for me, the thought of being able to go back and say larger and larger numbers over time was helpful. About a month in, I got up the courage to tell my wife, I'm going to AA meetings. And she was thrilled and super supportive. I think my drinking had bothered her. She knew not to bring it up because I would get angry. The shame associated with understanding I was an alcoholic, talking about myself as an alcoholic, and then being able to talk to my loved ones about it, and then ultimately getting to the point where I could write that piece for for MedPage Today about gray area drinking and my journey with it. And that was a year after I had started going to AA. So it took that long for me to sort of peel back the layers of what alcohol meant to me and why I drank and why not drinking was more healthy for me. I think the default for most people that go into kind of high pressure fields, especially like medical students, physicians, is to go, 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 without any thought to sort of slowing down and paying attention to how that go, go, go is affecting us. A lot of the journey for me over the last 20 years in figuring out how to manage this is giving myself permission to slow and make sure that I'm doing okay. Stigmatization of these issues is slowly going away, but there's still that internal shame. It's very helpful for me to hear people's stories who struggled with the same things that I did. It made it easier for me to open up, both about issues of depression, anxiety, but also about issues about alcoholism, which I battled as well. So a lot of sort of the slow melting of stigmatization occurs in those that we respect and admire telling their stories, and so that's why I'm happy to tell mine, I guess. Pretending that because we're physicians that we don't suffer illnesses or are supposed to be able to just muscle ourselves through anxiety and depression without any help it's just foolish. It's like expecting that a mechanic's car runs well all the time without that mechanic doing anything to sort of make the car run well. You still have to do the work. The fact is that doctors are humans and have all of the sort of foibles of the human condition.